Exactly. And the sources you shared, they offer a really fresh angle, I think.
Yeah.
Using these like vivid stories to get
Okay.
across concepts that seem simple, maybe,
What?
but are actually pretty profound when you dig in.
Yeah, we're talking about stories involving, well, competitive lumberjacks, for one,
Right.
the intense world of Navy SEAL selection, and even just a conversation with a hotel barista. We're going to try and unpack how these reveal some powerful truths about work, relationships, personal growth.
Yeah, it's about finding those fundamental human dynamics that apply kind of everywhere, regardless of your job title or industry.
Okay, so where should we start? Let's begin with something that feels, well, absolutely crucial for the long haul, something we maybe overlook day to day.
Uh-huh. This brings us right to this idea of always investing in your own capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's captured really well in this simple story about two lumberjacks.
Ah, yes.
They work the same hours right next to each other, cutting down trees.
Mm-hmm.
But one guy consistently cuts way more wood, significantly more.
Even though he disappears for an hour every day.
Exactly. He takes this hour break, vanishes.
And the other guy must be tearing his hair out,
Hmm.
working nonstop, seeing this. He must have asked him, right? Where do you go? How are you doing this?
You did. And the answer was, well, almost annoyingly simple. I go home and sharpen my axe.
It's such a clear picture, isn't it? One guy just pushing, focusing only on the output right now.
Yeah.
The other one thinking about maintaining the tool itself. So how does this link to what the source calls an infinite mindset?
It's completely fundamental. An infinite mindset isn't just about hitting today's target. It's about building, sustaining your ability to perform over the long term, your whole career, your whole life. If you just keep chopping, never stop to sharpen.
You get dull, less effective.
Exactly. Your capacity actually goes down.
So taking that break, stepping away,
Yeah,
that's not being lazy. It's actually a strategic move, an investment.
precisely. And the sources really stress it's not just about like physical rest, though that's definitely part of it. It's taking proper vacations. And this is key. Truly disconnecting.
Turning off the email, the phone.
Yes, letting your brain and body actually recover and reset. That's sharpening your axe. It's essential maintenance. It's not some kind of optional luxury.
That completely reframes rest. It's not the reward for the hard work. It's part of the work needed to keep working well.
Okay, let's shift from maintaining tools to,
Oh.
well, how we see problems. There's a lesson here about perspective that feels really powerful. Absolutely. This one's all about whether you tend to see what you want or, what's stopping you from getting it. The story involves Simon Sinek running at Central Park with a friend.
Okay.
And at the finish line, a sponsor has set up a table giving out free bagels.
Free bagels. Can't argue with that.
Right. But there's this massive line of runners waiting. Huge line. Sinek turns to his friend and says, let's grab a bagel.
And the friend sees.
The friend immediately goes, ugh, look at that line. Forget it. It's way too long.
Ah, the classic obstacle focus. The difference in what they saw is the whole point here, isn't it?
Totally. Sinek explains he could only see the bagels, the goal. His friend could only see the line, the barrier. Now, most people, faced with that line, they'd probably just sigh and walk off or maybe stand there and grumble.
But Sinek didn't do that. What did he do?
He just walked straight up to the table,
Yeah.
leaned in carefully between two people already in the line, reached into the box, grabbed two bagels,
Just like that.
said thanks to the person handing them out, and walked away.
And no one got mad. No shouting.
Nope, nothing. Because as he figured it out later, the unspoken rule wasn't really, you must stand in this specific line. The underlying principle was more like, you can have a bagel, just don't stop anyone else from getting their bagel.
Ah, so he didn't take the last ones? He didn't block anyone?
Exactly. He just found a different path to the goal, one that didn't negatively impact anyone else trying to get theirs.
So the takeaway isn't just break the rules. It's more like question the assumed process, find other ways as long as you're not harming others.
That's it. Exactly. It's a really deep point. Our perception often dictates our reality.
Yeah.
Do you lock onto the prize or get fixated on the hurdle? Do you just follow the steps everyone else follows? Or do you look for the reason behind the steps?
That's a fundamental shift. Wow. Okay, moving from individual perspective now to group dynamics, especially under serious pressure. The sources pull a really strong lesson from the Navy SEALs selection process, BUDS, right?
Yeah, BDS. And this lesson is all about taking care of each other. A SEAL instructor was asked, who actually makes it through this incredibly tough training? And he said, it's hard to describe who does make it, but really easy to describe who doesn't.
Okay, I'm curious. Who washes out consistently?
He listed a few types. The guys who are all bulked up, trying way too hard to look tough.
Yeah.
The star college athletes who kind of fall apart when their natural talent isn't enough anymore. The preening leader types who try to order everyone else around and avoid the worst of it themselves. Those guys, they almost never make it.
Okay, so it's not the obvious stuff like raw strength or solo achievement. Who are the ones left standing at the end?
Often, he said, they're not the biggest guys, not the fastest. Some might even look, physically smaller or even visibly scared sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, but the thing they all have in common, the ones who graduate, is this. When they are absolutely, completely spent, physically, emotionally, just drained, they somehow find the energy to help the person next to them. They'll share their last sip of water, help carry someone's gear, just offer a word of encouragement when everyone's hitting the wall.
So the most critical skill for an elite team, for these elite warriors, it isn't just being tough yourself, it's looking out for the team. That feels different from the usual image.
It absolutely is, and it's a combo insight from the material. The world is just too hard, too complex, too dangerous, even outside combat zones, to try and get through it all alone. And the lesson isn't just about giving help.
It's about asking for it, too.
Yes, which is often much harder for people, right? We feel this pressure to look like we have it all under control.
Yeah, definitely.
But the sources point out lots of people around you genuinely want to help. They just don't know you need it because you're putting up this front. The second you show a bit of vulnerability, admit you're struggling, or even just ask directly, people who care will often step right up.
But you have to take that step. Ask.
You do. It takes that humility. And it's probably easier if you're already someone who practices helping others. It becomes reciprocal.
Yep.
It's maybe the most valuable skill for building real resilience, both for yourself and for any group you're part of.
That makes a ton of sense. Building on that idea of group dynamics and maybe leadership, let's look at a different kind of power. The power of maybe presence and patience, using Nelson Mandela as an example.
Right. Mandela, obviously widely seen as a truly great leader. And the source talks about his childhood memories of going to tribal meetings with his father, who was a chief. He remembered two key things.
Okay.
One, they always sat in a circle, everyone equal. Two, his father was always the last person to speak.
We hear learn to listen all the time, but learn to be the last to speak. That feels like a next level skill. What's the advantage there?
It's definitely a higher level of discipline. Think about most meetings you've been in. Often, someone, maybe the boss, the highest ranking person, kicks things off by stating the problem and maybe even hinting at their preferred solution.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
And what does that do? It immediately frames everything. It can make people hesitant to offer different ideas, especially if they conflict with what the leader just said. It can shut down discussion before it even starts.
So by holding back, by waiting, what does the leader gain?
Two huge benefits. First, everyone else in that circle feels genuinely heard. They feel valued because they get to put their perspective out there fully before the leader weighs in. Their opinion matters.
That's powerful for morale and buy-in.
Absolutely. And second, just as importantly, you as the leader get the massive advantage of hearing all the different viewpoints, all the potential concerns, all the available information before you form or state your own definitive opinion. Your final decision is going to be way more informed, much more robust.
Okay, so the practice isn't just about being quiet. The source mentions a specific way to be while listening.
Right, it's active. The discipline is to hold your own opinions completely inside. No nodding in agreement, no shaking your head, no little facial flickers that signal what you think.
That sounds hard.
It is. Your only job in that phase is to ask questions. And not just, what did you say, type questions, but questions aimed at understanding why. Why does this person hold this view? What's their reasoning? What experience leads them there? What are they worried about?
So you're digging deeper than just the surface statement.
Exactly. It demands incredible self-control, especially if the topic is sensitive or you feel strongly about it. But the payoff in terms of deeper understanding and ultimately better, more considered decisions is obvious.
It's really about gathering everything first.
Bruh.
Okay, let's shift to maybe the most uncomfortable lesson, but also potentially the most important for growth, personally and in organizations, taking accountability. Because sometimes you're the problem.
Yeah, this one hits hard. And it's illustrated really starkly with a historical example, a puerperal fever back in the 18th, 19th centuries in Europe.
Fabled bed fever.
Right, the Black Death of childbed. Women were dying in hospitals at horrifying rates after giving birth. Sometimes, like 70% in certain wards, just devastating.
And this was happening even as medical science was supposedly advancing. They couldn't figure it out.
Exactly. Doctors were studying it intensely. They'd perform autopsies on the women who died in the morning,
Okay.
and then in the afternoon, they go straight to the delivery rooms to help with new births. These were dedicated scientists trying to cure disease, but they were completely unknowingly the carriers.
Until Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes made the connection.
Yes, mid-1800s. He looked at the patterns and realized, wait a minute, doctors are going from infected bodies directly to delivering babies without washing their hands. He basically told his colleagues, look, the common element here, it's us. We are spreading this.
Oof. How did that go down? That's a tough pill to swallow for esteemed doctors.
They basically laughed him out of the room, called him crazy, ignored him. It took decades before hand washing and sterilization became standard practice, and when they finally did, the death rates just plummeted. The lesson is just brutal. Sometimes, even with the best intentions, you are the problem.
Wow. That takes enormous humility to even consider, let alone accept. How does this tie into leadership and creating good work environments?
Oh, it's absolutely central. The sources use this great story about Noah the barista to make the connection.
Okay.
Cynic meets this guy, Noah, working at a Four Seasons hotel in Vegas. And Noah is just fantastic. Super friendly, remembers people's names, clearly loves his job, engaged.
You notice people like that?
Totally.
Yeah.
So Cynic asks him, why are you so happy here? What makes this job great? And Noah says, straight up, it's the managers. Any manager walking by any time of day would stop and ask him, how are you doing? Is there anything you need to do your job better? Can I help you with anything?
So he felt supported, seen.
Exactly. He felt cared for as a person. He felt safe enough to just be himself and do great work.
But that wasn't his only job, right? He also worked somewhere else.
Yeah. He also worked as a barista at Caesar's Palace. Very different vibe.
How's
Starkly different. At Caesar's, Noah said, the managers were always kind of lurking, patrolling, trying to catch people making mistakes, doing things wrong.
Oh, the gotcha style of management.
Exactly. So what was Noah's strategy there? Keep your head down. Do the absolute minimum required not to get fired. Just survive the shift, collect the paycheck, get out.
Wow. Same person, Noah.
Yeah.
Same basic job, barista. But completely different motivation, different performance, all based on the leadership and the environment they created.
This is the absolute core insight here from the source material. It's often not the people who are the problem. It's the environment the leaders shape.
Yeah.
We talk so much about getting the right people on the bus, right?
Yeah, classic analogy.
But maybe leaders should focus first on making the bus itself a place where people actually want to be, where they can thrive.
And the source connects this really nicely to empathy, doesn't it? If you look at a whole group, maybe it's like an entire generation facing certain challenges, or a team that's consistently underperforming, or even just patterns in your own personal life.
Right.
If you see consistent problems, maybe the issue isn't some fundamental flaw in all those individuals.
It might be the system, the environment, the leadership they're working under. It's exactly the same logic as eventually realizing, the only common factor in all my failed relationships is me.
Ouch. But yeah, that shift from blaming individuals to examining the context, the system, the leadership, that has to change everything about how you try to fix things.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Empathy means really trying to grasp what it's like for someone else.
Yeah.
If you're finding it hard to help people be at their natural best, which is a different goal than just squeezing the most productivity out of them,
Right. Subtle but important difference.
then you have to look hard at the conditions you're creating or that you're a part of. That empathetic viewpoint changes the questions you ask, the priorities you set, the decisions you make, totally changes the game.
That's a really powerful bridge between accountability and empathy. Okay, let's cover one last lesson. This one feels like it helps keep everything else in perspective, especially, as you move up or get more recognition. The lesson: you will always deserve a styrofoam cup.
Yes.
Mm.
This comes from a story about a former Undersecretary of Defense. He was invited to speak at this big conference. He'd spoken there the year before, when he was still in his very powerful government job. And then he spoke again this year, after he'd left that position.
Okay, I think I see where this is going. The difference in how he was treated must have been pretty stark.
Oh, completely. Night and day. Last year, holding the fancy title, flown business class, met at the airport by a driver with a sign, whisked through a private hotel check-in, handed his coffee backstage in a nice heavy ceramic mug.
The VIP treatment.
Totally.
Yeah.
This year. No longer undersecretary, flew coach, took a taxi from the airport, waited in the regular check-in line with everyone else. And when he got coffee backstage, it was from a self-serve urn into a styrofoam cup.
Wow. That's about as clear a message as you can get about changed status.
And he actually told the story from the stage. He shared it. And the core insight he delivered was this: that ceramic cup last year. It was never really for him, the individual person. It was for the position he held, the title. Fundamentally, he said, he deserves a styrofoam cup.
That's incredibly humbling.
It really is. And it's such a crucial reminder, especially as you gain seniority or success or fame or wealth. People will start treating you differently. They'll be more deferential, offer perks, open doors, smooth things over for you.
This ceramic cup treatment.
Exactly. And the source really hammers this point, that better treatment usually isn't because you've suddenly become a fundamentally better or more worthy human being. It's afforded to the role, the status, the level you occupy.
So enjoy the perks when you get them, maybe. But don't ever confuse them with your actual inherent worth as a person.
That's precisely it. Accept those perks with gratitude, sure. Enjoy the ceramic cup if it comes your way. But maintain the humility to know that who you are, deep down, doesn't entitle you to special treatment. You will always fundamentally deserve a styrofoam cup. It's such a powerful anchor to keep you grounded.
These lessons, pulled from such different kinds of stories, they really offer a compelling, maybe alternative way to think about work and life, don't they? How do they all kind of loop back together, especially in our modern world, and this idea of actually finding fulfillment in what we do?
Oh, they're incredibly relevant right now. Think about Lesson 4: leadership creates the environment. The sources argue, quite passionately actually, that loving your work shouldn't be some rare privilege like winning the lottery.
Right.
The vast majority of people should be able to wake up most days and actually look forward to their job, or at least not dread it.
And the onus for making that happen falls heavily on leaders, creating those Four Seasons type places, not the Caesar's Palace ones.
It's exactly right. Leaders need to really demand of themselves that they build environments where people feel psychologically safe. Safe enough to be vulnerable sometimes, to admit they made a mistake, to ask for help, to receive feedback without feeling attacked, safe enough to feel genuinely cared for as people. When that happens, people want to contribute their best.
They offer that discretionary effort.
Precisely. When people truly believe their leaders care more about their well-being, their growth, than just hitting some arbitrary number or pleasing some outside stakeholder, they give everything.
Because it feels personal then, not just like a transaction.
That's it. Working hard for something you feel disconnected from, something you don't really care about deep down, that's stress, plain and simple. But working hard, even really hard, for something you love, something you believe in a place where you feel supported and valued, that's passion. And leaders cultivate that passion by cultivating the environment first.
The sources also touch briefly on some of the challenges unique to now, social media, technology, especially how it impacts younger generations. This seems to connect back to those earlier lessons about connection and, well, how we cope with things.
It absolutely does. Think about it. Growing up constantly connected means we get really, really good at curating an image, right? Putting filters on everything, presenting this kind of perfect-looking life, even if we're struggling inside.
Yeah.
And engaging with these devices, scrolling through feeds, getting likes, that delivers little hits of dopamine.
Yeah.
It's the same brain chemical involved in things we know are addictive, like smoking, gambling, alcohol. So having this constant, unfettered access, especially during stressful times like adolescence, it creates really powerful feedback loops.
And the potential long-term effects are worrying.
Yeah. The sources suggest it can make it harder to form really deep, trusting relationships later on. You might have tons of surface-level friends online, but lack the skills or comfort to be truly vulnerable, to really rely on people face-to-face. And maybe most critically, it trains us in kind of poor coping mechanisms.
How so?
When stress hits, or just discomfort, the go-to instinct can become reaching for a device, for that quick dopamine hit, that temporary distraction, instead of the older, maybe harder, but ultimately healthier way, turning towards another person, for support, for understanding, just to talk it through.
Which brings us right back around to lesson 2, doesn't it? Taking care of each other, learning to ask for help, learning to accept it.
Exactly. And lesson 4, again, creating those environments where people feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to admit they need help. These aren't just, abstract corporate buzzwords. They're deeply relevant insights for navigating the real psychological and social challenges we all face today. Challenges definitely shaped by technology and changing norms.
So, these stories, these lessons, they're not just clever anecdotes. They offer genuinely practical wisdom for building, well, better lives and better workplaces starting right now.
That's the real power in these simple-sounding truths, I think.
We've definitely covered a lot in this deep dive. From, the absolute necessity of sharpening your axe for the long game
Uh-huh.
and shifting your view to see the bagels, not just the line, to the crucial skill of genuinely caring for others, the surprising strength in being the last to speak, taking that sometimes painful accountability and staying grounded with that styrofoam cup reality check.
They are powerful ideas, yet they feel fundamentally accessible, don't they? Different ways to reevaluate how we show up, how we interact, all drawn right from the material you brought to the table.
So, as you, the listener, reflect on these different ways of seeing things yourself, other people, your work, the challenges you face, maybe consider this. How would consciously trying to practice just one of these lessons starting today, how might that actually change a key relationship you have, or maybe a difficult situation you're dealing with right now?
Or flip it around. Think about the environment you're part of. Or maybe even the ones you help create. Could be your team at work, could be your family, a community group.
Mhm.
How might applying some of these insights about leadership creating the space or the sheer value of taking care of each other, how might that shift things?
Yeah.
How might it help the people around you be more at their natural best? Lots to think about there.